And this is In the Making, Adobe's podcast about the real work and people who make up the creator economy. Before I introduce my guest this week, I want to take a moment to thank all of you for listening to our very first season. And in an effort to get to know you better, we put together a very brief survey. We'd love to hear from you as we plan season 2. And to thank you for your time and thoughts, we will be giving away 2 12-month memberships to Creative Cloud, which includes access to Adobe Express Premium, our lightweight tool for creatives and small business owners. You'll find full details and the survey link in the show notes. Now on to our show. This is the final episode for the first season of In the Making, and we're going out with a bang. I am so incredibly honored to introduce our final guest, the esteemed Chris Doe. Chris is an Emmy Award-winning designer and director, and the CEO and founder of The Futur, an online education platform with the mission of teaching 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love. In his near 30-year career, Chris has served on boards for organizations such as the Society for the Promotion of Japanese Animation, AIGA Los Angeles, and the Emmys Motion and Title Design Peer Group. Chris has taught sequential design for over 15 years at Art Center College of Design as well as Otis College of Art and Design. He has lectured at universities and conferences worldwide, including Adobe Max. That's where he and I met in October. His nearly 1 million Instagram followers rely on him for his practical and inspirational takes on the art of business and the business of art. Welcome to In the Making, Chris. I am so grateful to have you here with us today.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
People listening might not actually know about The Futur and what it's about. What is The Futur? And how is The Futur making education equitable for students and teachers?
The Futur is an experiment on a big idea that I have, which is here, at least in America, good education is very expensive. And so it's oftentimes the avenue for people who have means, who have access, who were raised by the right parents with the right affluence. So the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And so this bothers me because I'm a refugee from Vietnam. And when I came here with my parents, we didn't have a lot of things. And I don't know how it is that I was able to navigate a public school system, but I'm here and I feel this incredible debt that I need to repay. So what I want to do is to be able to take the most powerful lessons I've learned in business and life and in design to be able to distill it down in a way that's scalable, infinitely scalable, so that it becomes accessible. So if we can democratize education, then maybe we give access to more people to empower them to change their lives and the lives of the people they care about.
I think it started out as an experiment, but now it's just a tool and something that people rely on. And thank you so much for doing that for people. You started teaching, I think, because a friend of yours was a teacher and she couldn't do it and asked you to fill in.
Yeah. What you're talking about is my friend, former employee, Michelle Doherty, is teaching main title design.
Why did you go all in on education? Like, was that something you're passionate about?
This is the big breakthrough for me. That first year in teaching taught me more about myself, about my self-acceptance and self-confidence than anything I had done prior to that point in time, and it still continues to be the main driver of my confidence. A lot of times we question ourselves, like, what is it we know? Is anything I have interesting to anybody? And isn't this obvious to everyone? And it's not until you put yourself in front of students who ask you those questions, kind of like with this reckless abandon that they can ask you anything because it's safe, because we're in school, that you have to search deep into your mind, your psyche, and your soul to say, do I have an answer for this? And surprisingly, more often than not, at least for me, I did. And when I saw their eyes light up, I was thinking to myself, wow, maybe somebody else might want to know this stuff. This is pretty cool. And I started to rebuild my identity around this idea of being an educator, moving away from that of a graphic designer or even an entrepreneur. Like, first and foremost, I think now I describe myself as an educator.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So you've talked about the importance of learning to learn and learning to read in a meaningful way. What do you mean by that?
Okay. So I don't think you'd get a lot of arguments from anybody to say that reading books is a good thing. Most people believe that. So if you read one book, it's better than you read 0 books. But what's better than reading a book? Well, retaining. I ask people, hey, did you read that book? Like, yeah. Tell me 2 ideas you learned from it. And they can't tell you anything. I said, are you sure you read the book? So if you don't retain anything, what good is the book? So this is why I don't love it when people post like, I read 35 books this year. Well, tell me 2 things you've learned. That might be important. There's one thing that's better than retention, which is application. So I've read books. I remember what I've read. I've applied what I read, and yet there's still another level. So I've applied it, but can I teach it, which is the 4th realm of mastery. So it's good to read, it's good to remember, it's good to apply, but it's even better to be able to teach those concepts to other people. So what you should be doing is you should be reading the book or learning a lesson or attending a workshop with the intention to teach that workshop or that lesson or that book. That's how I approach it.
I want to talk business. So some people think of you as a branding, art direction, and design expert. You've actually not designed in a very long while. You have always had a passion and probably is a born entrepreneur. I heard that story about you buying candy from your uncle who owns a store. And, you bought a wholesale and then you would sell it to kids for a markup. So you've always been an entrepreneur. When did you decide to really focus on the business aspect of design, generating leads, negotiating, or closing deals?
Well, first in 1995, when I started my business, I realized a very valuable lesson that in design school, nobody talks about marketing, negotiation, sales, and pricing. And so you're thrown to the wolves and you fend for yourself. Luckily, if you have enough talent and opportunities available, you win more than you lose. And that's kind of how I cut my teeth on the business aspect.
It's part of being a designer or just part of being in the world, right?
I think so.
Help me understand the business models of your 2 different companies, Blind and the Futur. Obviously, brand strategy, design consultancy is a different thing from the Futur.
Okay. First of all, I have to clarify something. I don't do any more design consultancy work unless it's through one of my coaching programs. In December 2018, my team looked at me and they said, shouldn't we focus all our energies on education and building an education company? And it was a radical idea at that time. And I said, okay, let's try, let's go for it and see what happens. So we turned away all our client projects and we've been client free since December of 2018.
Wow.
Last year, I think we did $4.5 million in revenue, all from educational products, coaching, and public speaking and sponsorships.
What do you think made the Futur so successful?
I think there was one very critical lesson that I learned early on. When Jose and I ran the school prior to the Futur, that's another company, we created a product and we created content to market the product. So we would release videos on YouTube with the intention of building awareness and creating desire for the product or solution that we made. And it didn't really garner the attention that we wanted, and we couldn't figure out why sales weren't moving. The critical lesson that we learned, it was to create content to help people, and through the act of goodwill and building that trust, over time, they're going to want to buy whatever it is that you make. And that's a relationship that we have now with our community. I can call them customers, but they're more communities.
Yeah.
And this word gets thrown around a lot, and I'm a little nervous even to introduce it into our dialogue. But there is a fervor, a loyalty that I'm not even sure I've earned or deserve that might be borderline a cult-like behavior that people have for us. And I think all brands in the 21st century that are worth billions of dollars have that exact same attribute.
I think I sort of know why you have that high level of followership is because you're very engaged with the community. You write back. I don't know if you have someone that does that for you or it's you, but I see you're so active. You reply to their questions or you make comments about their comments. So I think that's a big reason why you can call it a community, because it's a dialogue and not just a one-way conversation.
Yeah. There are 3 people who work on my account. Me, myself, and I. When you're dealing with me, not the company, when you're dealing with Chris on any social platform, 99.9% of the times it's me.
While we're on that subject, how much time do you devote to spending time engaging with the community, like answering DMs or emails?
I want to tell you that it's 2 hours, but it's probably more like 6 hours every day.
Wow.
It's half of my waking time. I'm probably commenting, responding to, or dealing with somebody's question somewhere online.
You mentioned that you came to the U.S. as a refugee from Vietnam, and I can relate. I wasn't a refugee, but we're both immigrants from another country. I've also noticed that you started recently sharing your origin story on social media. Why now?
I will tell you a couple of like my own limiting beliefs around this, in that I thought that no one's interested in hearing about my story. So I only tell people about my story when they ask. But when my students would do a studio tour, they already knew about me as a teacher and as a professional. So naturally, they would ask me lots of questions about me, my life, challenges that I've had, and I would share that. I think it's really important for us to give value to other people, to try to help them go from where they are to where they'd like to be. And in doing so, you build community, you build kinship, and you really create genuine value to others. And I want to share this with you and your audience, because I saw Aaron Draplin, who I consider a professional friend. We've talked a couple of times. We've seen each other in multiple places. And I saw him get on stage, on the biggest stage for creatives, in front of 9,000-ish people, and do his thing.
Yeah, at Adobe Max.
So I started thinking to myself, next year, 2024, will be the tour in which I tell my story. And it's going to be a good story because I've already started writing the outline to it, because there's lots of funny things. I think I'm going to call the story, or the title of the talk, Design is a Gateway Drug.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm so looking forward to that. I'm just one of so many that can relate to your story of just coming to a new country, not knowing the language, not having a lot, like you mentioned, growing up. But look where you are today. And it's funny that you brought up Aaron Draplin, because he was my guest on episode 9, and he is just an amazing individual human being. I have mad respect for his authenticity, and I have mad respect for you too. It's just mind-blowing, honestly. You've said that you're an ambivert. And let me explain, because I think a lot of people don't know what that means. Ambiverts are people who fall somewhere in the middle of being an introvert and an extrovert. So ambiverts are flexible individuals who thrive both in solitude and social settings. How has being an ambivert hurt or helped you in your journey as a creator or a business owner?
I'm an immigrant. English is not my first language. I had some difficulty to pronounce multisyllable words, polysyllabic words. And so when I was in school, I kept my mouth shut. Now, let's add to that, there are very few Asian people when I'm growing up in the town in which I'm growing up. So I'm already feeling like an outsider, because I would get into fights with people who would throw racial slurs at me, or just to try to pick on me because I'm small. I'm small and skinny. And so I'm dealing with a lot of that stuff. I just want to get through class every day without a problem. I want to be able to walk to school and come back home without someone starting trouble with me. That was just my only desire. So of course, if you take a personality test in that state of mind, so naturally it comes out, I'm an introvert. And I'm like, I'm an introvert, right? And we have to just clarify for a lot of people, they think being an introvert is being shy and being an extrovert is being gregarious and very outgoing. It has nothing to do with that. It's about how you manage energy. So when you're around a lot of people, introverts need to take time alone and recharge. So you know you're an introvert when during COVID, you felt really happy and thriving because you were just at home, not having to drain your battery. And all the extroverts suffered mightily. They went into depression. They got into fights with people. They had cabin fever. They just couldn't handle it anymore because they need to be around people. Not to say that introversion is good or bad, nor extroversion is good or bad. It just is. So when I first started teaching, there was the mental load that was happening with me and managing the energies of 15 to 20 people in class. It would take me about a day and a half to recover. So it wrecked me. But I noticed something. Eventually just become a day. 3/4 of a day, and then half a day, and then a quarter day, and then I could sort of be semi-normal the next day. And so I think there's a whole spectrum, and I think I must fit somewhere in the middle. So when I learned about this term ambivert, and if you think ambidextrous, the ability to use both hands, you're somewhere in that spectrum. I'm not sure where I am. But I know now when I'm around people that I feel like I have a connection to, even if we're complete strangers, I'm excited to see them.
Yeah. Thank you for that wonderful explanation. But talking about how people recharge, how do you recharge? Besides spending time alone, and when you're alone, is it just doing nothing? I know as a loud introvert, I relish going home, getting on my sofa and with cozy blankets and reading a book or writing a letter, writing in my journal. How do you recharge, Chris?
You're way more productive than I am. Let me just tell you that. So I just got back literally last Friday from a 2-week crazy 6-city tour talk, right? So I get home and I'm on a different time zone mentally and physically. So the first thing I do is I just sit on the couch, turn on YouTube and whatever it is that I want to watch. And I just want to chill there with a blanket. And I have a notepad near me, though it rarely gets used, just in case that idea pops up. I need time to process.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening is by not adding additional mental load or more processing, I'm able to reflect back on the last 2 weeks. And I'm slowly decoding those experiences. And this is something that I encourage a lot of people to do, to be able to sit alone in our own thoughts.
Yeah, it's so important to take breaks. Where do you find inspiration?
Okay, this one's an easy one.
I know you probably get asked this all the time.
Well, it's not that. It's just that because it's related to a question you asked earlier about how much time I spend on social responding to people. And I get inspired by people, and not the way that you think. This is not me like in a circle and we're like singing Kumbaya and just playing drums and things like that. I'm going to say this, it's going to come out rough. I get inspired by sometimes the stubbornness and stupidity of people. I'll just say it like that. Because people don't understand this about me. I learn in the friction. So if I say, always charge this price, and they do, there's no friction. I'm like, no one wants to hear this. Okay, I guess it must be obvious to everybody. That's what I think.
Uh-huh.
But when people fight back at me, like, why would I want to charge more? This is robbery. It's unethical. I'm like, oh yeah, let's go, baby. So that starts another thread. It starts another conversation. It starts another piece of content. And so oftentimes they come back with a lot of vitriol, but I just sit there and think, what is the real question underneath this? Do you need a hug? What's going on here? Because those emotions fire me up. And I'll tell you something, it is very difficult for me to write in a very zen state. I need something to spark me. That's why I'm in the comments all the time.
I get it. That makes sense to me that you're getting inspired by the feedback that you're getting, which reminds me of this really clever thing you did. I saw that video that you did. It's called Chris Doe is a Fraud.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, he is so smart and clever to address this, right? At first I was like, why would he do that? But then I got it. You were able to really show why. Like you debunked all of the things that he was thinking or feeling.
Yeah. Can I give you some context to that video?
Of course.
Okay. So the guy that's on the show, his name is Mike Winkleman, but he happened to get on a Zoom call with us and we're going to do some content. And he has a Midwestern accent. He looks a little like Bill Gates, just so you guys can visualize this. And he's like, Dow, what do we talk about? I'm like, I don't know. What's on your mind? What's firing up your world? It's like, I know what. I don't feel this way, but a lot of people think you're a snake oil salesman. I'm like, that's what we'll do the show about. Now, for those art historians in this group, who is Mike Winkleman? Mike Winkleman, also known as Beeple, sold one of his NFT projects for $69.3 million a couple of years ago.
What?
That is who is calling me a fraud. Yeah.
What?
So now you know as they say, the rest of the story.
Wow. Well, for my audience, if you haven't seen that video on YouTube, you got to find it. It's amazing. Just last week, I had this incredible, invaluable, amazing time with design students at one of our Adobe creative retreats. I asked the students, I go, hey, my last guest for the podcast is Chris. What questions do you have for him? This one has to do with what the Futur calls the 1 billion mission, which is, I quote, to teach 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love without losing their soul, end quote. One of the students, M, want to give you a shout out and thank you for your question, wanted me to ask you this. Do you think we can work in design without exploiting or being exploited? This is because M recently moved to San Francisco and is seeing all the homelessness and the high cost of living. Em is curious what you think about that.
First of all, thank you, Em, for that question. It's a good question. I would love to have a conversation with you about this versus making assumptions about what you mean. So let's just unpack the operative word here, which is exploitation or exploit. Exploit sounds like you're taking advantage of something. That's a loaded word. And I'm wondering why Em is asking this question. She could have said, take advantage of or find an opportunity in. But I think the word exploitation or exploitive sounds like it has a negative tint to it. But I just wanted to frame this. Like in some utopian society, we exchange value with no money. We just do things because of the spirit of generosity. And I'd like to live in that world. But that world doesn't seem to be present in the moment. And so we're always exchanging value. So this gets into the question of where leverage is. So for example, if you're a new student and you just graduated, you have a mountain of student debt. So now you need to pay down this debt and you need to make a living for yourself. So then you run into a business owner who has a need for what it is that you do. Since they don't have the education, the training, and the time, frankly, to do what it is they need, you are exploiting their lack of education or experience by charging them something that's fairly easy for you to do. And they are also exploiting you by giving you money, which comes easily to them, which they make lots of, and they're going to give you that so that you can make the problem go away. So I see it as a mutual exploitation. Here's where it gets real interesting, is did you both go into with open arms and open mind saying, we agree to this, and if we both agree, how could we be exploiting each other? I don't know where the problem is.
Here's another question. Should we take remote jobs or should we try to find an in-person opportunity when looking for that first job at a school? But on the flip side, I want to ask, do you think the university students or people can learn as much working at a firm when you're not in person with colleagues?
I think rather than saying better or worse, I just think it's different.
Different.
I know what it's like to walk the floor with a room full of designers and say, oh, let me sit down with you. I noticed you're doing this and there's a more efficient or effective way of doing that. And then they learn something and I could see it in their eyes. I can't do that anymore. So I think we need to do some hybrid version of this.
Yeah.
I think there are ways to work around this. And I think each person can use their own imagination and creativity to find a better way. We don't have to go to the old way because I think this is an opportunity to do it better and even more efficient than we used to.
Yeah. So one final question from the group of students. You started your own firm very early in your career. So you didn't spend a lot of time working for other design firms.
Yes.
One of the students asked, what was the reason behind that? Did you just want to not work for anyone? Or did you especially feel you knew how to manage people and create a vision for the people to follow and want to be a part of?
I'm going to give you the short answer and then I'm going to give you the real answer.
Okay.
The short answer is I'm impatient, I'm arrogant, and I'm unemployable. That's the short answer. I'm impatient because I've always dreamt about having my own business since I was selling candy and getting in trouble all over school trying to make a buck. I have that entrepreneur spirit. And I'm arrogant because I think because I'm good, I could do anything. Like I live in that kind of abundance mindset. So I think I'm going to start a business and of course it's going to be successful. Of course I'm going to win awards. Of course I'm going to get the best projects. That's not true, but that's how I think of it. And I'm unemployable in that I went from working at an ad agency in a very corporate place to working at a punk rock music label and not finding myself in either one of these spaces. And so very shortly I quit. And I was thinking, I think I have to make my own company because this is not working. Now, I want to caveat in all the companies I've ever worked for, either full-time or freelance, I did my very best. And I have to say this, I think this is true. They loved me, but despite them liking me more than I like them, I had to do what was right for me. The long answer. I'm freelancing at this place called Novacom because at this point in time, Novacom was one of the hottest broadcast design shops in the world. And it was the congregation of some of the most talented designers and visual effects artists in one building. And here I am, still wet behind the ears, straight out of school, just messing up, but working there and them offering me a job. And then I get a message out of the blue from my uncle, my dad's younger brother. He said, since I've known you, you've always wanted to run a business. How would you like to start a design company? Let's go, baby. You had me at design, I'm in. And like, what are the terms? So he told me this. He said, my business partner, and my uncle's an attorney, my business partner and I, we create boutique hotels all over the world. And we would like to have a design company handle all our design and marketing. So not only would we be your partners in this, we would just supply you with endless amounts of work. And this is a win-win-win. And I'm not talking about Vietnamese names here. It's W-I-N, okay? It's that kind of win. So I'm like, yes, let's do this. They own 51% of the company, which in my immature 23-year-old mind, I had a hard time with. I'm like, why do you guys own more? I run the whole company. It's our money. We need control. So get this. I write up a business plan, which I know nothing about. I asked for $100,000 in a cash injection for them to buy the 51%. We're sitting at the Westin Bonaventure, I think, having dinner. And Bob, the business partner, reaches in his coat jacket. It's either he's going to shoot me or something weird's going to happen. And he pulls out his checkbook. I'm like, what is happening? He writes a check for $5,000 on the spot to my name, tears it out and gives it to me. Said, this is a good faith gesture. I'm 23 years old. I've never even seen $5,000 before.
Wow.
And for what? We don't even know. They're just pre-agreeing to this whole thing. And I was like, this is amazing. So I run home. I'm like, I deposit the check in my account. It feels so good for it to be more than $100, right? And we start our business.
Yeah.
Now, here's the weird thing.
Wow.
I start making calls to people I know, and work is already coming in, because in that short amount of time, which I was hopping from company to company, I created a bit of a reputation. So from the ad agency, they gave me work. From the punk rock music label, I was getting work. And from Novacom, I was getting work as a freelance creative. And I just started. Now, the story has some interesting twists to it. We're a couple of months in. Yeah. I'm cash flow positive. I already have a few part-time employees. And I was thinking, where's the rest of the $95,000? Where's this guaranteed work? And I was getting upset because I'm arrogant and impatient. I've established that part.
Impatient, yes.
I'm arrogant and impatient. I called my uncle. I'm a little upset. I said, Uncle, what is going on? Why don't we have money? And he said, we're having some issues with one of our properties overseas. This is small fish for us. He goes, we will breach the contract. You keep that good faith gesture. I felt really guilty. It was like, I didn't do anything. He goes, that's how business is done, kid. I changed the company name and we start again. And it's a very powerful lesson in this, in that a lot of us are waiting for some sign, for a permission slip from someone or something so that we can go into business for ourselves. All I needed was an imaginary $100,000 coming to me and an endless supply of work, which never came, by the way. I never needed the $5,000. I never needed that work because from day one, we were running a profitable company and we're off to the races. I just needed the courage to believe in myself. And that's a lesson I would like everyone to really take to heart.
Yeah, I love that story. Actually, it's not a story. It's part of your journey. And it reminds me that no matter where you are, you got to show up and build that reputation, like you said. Just because you know you're not going to be there forever, it's like a stepping stone kind of job, or you hate it, or you're bored, you still got to show up and do the work.
Yes.
And my final question for all my guests is, what is your one word for 2024? One word that's going to guide you or inspire you?
My word for 2024 is rebuild.
What are you going to rebuild?
Everything.
Wow.
Yeah, because I've learned this from my previous business coach. And it can be summed up this way. And essentially, it's what got you here won't get you there. You can't keep using the playbook from the past to get you to some future that's way beyond where you are. So everything we did got us to the first million. Everything that we did then had to be thrown away to get us to the 3 million. And I'm determined to build a $10 million company. So I know we have to reinvent, we have to rebuild, because everything that we've done to this point will keep us here, and I need to let go. So it's one of these things that I try to teach people is the art of detachment. You got to let go of your old ideas about your old identities and processes. If you want to innovate, you have to break things, and it's going to be really messy and it's going to be really ugly. But in order for us to become a $100 million company, we need to be a $10 million company first. And so I got to break everything to rebuild.
I learned so much. Thank you so much, Chris. I don't even know how to thank you for saying yes to supporting this podcast, supporting me. I really Really so appreciate it. I'm going to get all teary. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I want to say something. And the reason why I said yes to you so fast, there are two companies that are part of my history, my life. One is Apple, the other is Adobe. One makes the hardware to empower my dreams. The other gives me the tools to articulate those dreams. And I have a deep, maybe lopsided affectionate connection to these two companies.
What a great way to end the season. Really, thank you. It was truly an honor and such a privilege for me to speak with Chris today. I took away so much from our conversation, and I hope you did as well. As always, here are just some of my key takeaways. 1. Let go of the way you have done things in the past. It might be scary to let go of what's been successful for you in order to pursue bigger goals, but it's necessary to try new ways of doing things. What got you here might not work to get you where you want to go. 2. Chris had the courage to start his own business once someone else asked him to do it. Don't underestimate the power of believing in yourself. You don't have to wait for outside validation to do something big. 3. Do the work to know yourself and play to your strengths while being honest about your limitations. Whether that means you work best with a team or as a solo operator, own it, because that is what is going to make you thrive. You can follow Chris on social media at the Chris Doe. That's spelled TheChrisdo, and you'll also find the links in our show notes. This is In the Making, and I'm Teresa Au, your host and executive producer. Our producers for the show are Chrysanthi Tenitence and Lisa Campbell, and our sound editor is Amy Ferrati. We want to hear from you as we wind down our very first season. We're giving away 2 12-month memberships to Adobe Creative Cloud to respondents to our podcast survey, which you'll find the link for in our show notes. Follow us at Adobe Live on Instagram and on YouTube to keep in touch between episodes. And please email us at inthemaking@adobe.com with any of your feedback, questions, and suggestions. A very heartfelt thank you for listening to Season 1, and we'll see you all back here in 2024. This is In the Making, and I'm Teresa Au, your host. I'm so excited to be bringing you this brand new podcast with intimate stories and life lessons from the front lines of the creator economy. Now, even if you've never heard of the creator economy, you might be a part of it and not even know it. The creator economy is where creativity, the online world, and business meet. And this economy is leading to new kinds of creative careers. On In the Making, you'll hear from content creators, communicators, marketers, designers, and the folks who do a little bit of everything, the slashies. Their stories will inspire you, and their hard-won lessons may be useful to you in your own journey. So join me every 2 weeks for revealing and honest conversations where we get to find out together how these creators overcome the challenges of being small business owners and creatives at the same time. I'm so glad you're here. So let's get into it. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Puno, who goes by just one name, the founder of ilovecreatives, a boutique design agency. She's also the founder of ilovecreatives Studio, which is an online trade school for aspiring design professionals and a hub for community events and resources. Puno is so inspiring to me, and not only because she empowers other creatives, but she's designed a career that really works for her. And she's devised her own process for making sure that she's on track, something we can all learn from. Oh, and just in case that sounds too serious, Puno can also be found directing funny videos and doing photo shoots with her cat Maldive. And I just knew I had to have her as my guest after watching the compressed PDF, Even Cat Can Do It Real. It was so funny. It was so funny.
Yeah.
You and your cat captured all of us. So Puno, thanks again for being my first guest. Did you know that you always wanted to be an entrepreneur and content creator?
In college, I wanted to be a business person, but I didn't know what that meant. Like, nobody knows what that means when you're in college. And I went and I got a business degree. I didn't think I was going to go corporate, like with Dell or Microsoft, and do marketing there. It didn't feel right. When I was in college, I had a side project that it's by no means a Behance, but that was the idea, was like a portfolio site for advertising students to get jobs in agencies. That was like one of the first business ideas that I had that I actually like executed.
Yeah.
And I didn't make any money though.
So you moved on.
I moved on. I was like, oh snap, I need to make some money now or I'm going to have to live with my parents. So I ended up getting a job as an art director because I had reached out to all these creative directors trying to pitch them my business. And they're like, I don't know if we need this, but you want a job?
Wow. Okay. So you went the 9-to-5 route, working as an art director for many years, including your time at Activision working on the Call of Duty video game. But then things changed. So what was going on? Tell me about that time.
I was like 27 at the time, and I was pretty burnt out from the video gaming world. The burnout was real. I was crying at 10 o'clock at night in front of a bar. It was messy. Emotionally, I was very anxious at work. And I felt like I had just no control. Essentially, I started building up all of these like deal breakers of little things that just kind of added to that burnout, added to not being fulfilled with my work. And I consciously kept track of all of these deal breakers. My goal really was like, okay, whatever I build next is going to be with that creative brief in mind. And I quit without having a plan.
Wow. Well, quitting without a plan is brave. And you sound so confident and you make it sound so easy. Was it always smooth sailing?
So I think I'm very lucky because I'm a designer and I work in web, and I got laid off in 2008. I've had to freelance before. So I understand that it's hard and it's scary, but I was very comfortable living in an uncomfortable state. Call of Duty did pay pretty well. So I made a pretty big runway. So it wasn't like super risky. I had like a 1.5 year runway.
Oh, okay. That's so important.
It was so important. I think that people think that I'm a risk taker, but I'm actually not. I had like $10,000 in credit card debt before, and I never wanted to be in that situation again.
So at this point, you know you want to start your own business and you do have savings to live on. How did you decide what that business was going to be?
Oh, yeah. I think in the beginning, I definitely had a different outlook. I was, for some reason, thinking that I would be able to answer the question, what am I going to do with my life? That is a huge question. That is like an overwhelming, huge question. We laugh when a college student is like, I don't know what to do with my life. Yeah, of course you don't, you know?
I mean, people in their 50s are still asking that question. At any age, they're still asking this question.
Exactly. And I think while that's a great question, I think it's a trap because it's such a hard question to answer. I remember I was sitting on a couch and I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and think. I did that a lot and I felt very stressed out about it. It was like the most anxiety-inducing way to build a business. And I finally just realized I need to do stuff. Like I need to actually just do things versus try to think through everything. essentially what I was doing, I was just worrying all the time. And it was like a spiral that I was just looping and just rethinking about the same thing, but never able to like say yes or no, that's a good idea or that's a bad idea, because I was just never actually doing anything.
How did you get out of that rut?
I was realizing trying to come up with some genius answer that will solve all my problems, but I need to just do stuff. This is kind of my slashy phase where I was trying to answer that question, what do I want to do with my life? And I was like, well, let me just play. Let me build skills, because I always knew that skills gave me leverage. I've always been self-taught since I was in high school. And so I was just like, what am I interested in? So I did all sorts of things. I mentored with a photographer that I really loved. I did styling. I did graphic design. I did Shopify website design. I just did whatever was interesting. And it was really fun. It was kind of like what you expect to do in college, right? Explore all the different things that you want to do.
It's like a gap year. You took a gap year.
I still do that though. It's like I still am always experimenting with something. Like the other day, because of Adobe Max, like I played around with Adobe Character Animate. I just want to learn all the time, and I just want to play all the time, because I know that always ends up going up the funnel some way into something that I can get paid for. So things that I do for fun can eventually pay my bills. That actually happens a lot.
Can you give me one example?
Oh my gosh. My cat, I was like photographing my cat, and then she just booked a Smalls ad. She's going to be on the New York Metro.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that was just because you wanted to take some videos and photos of your cute cat.
Yeah. Like we were doing a photo shoot, and like, I guess because the lights are really hot, like she just sits in front of the light. So it looks like she wants her photo to be taken. I think she also does. And then I was like, okay, girl, well, would you like some pearls? And then I just had fun with it. I did a cat calendar just for fun. And then that cat calendar turned into a shoot with Youth to the People. They wanted a cat calendar. And the more I have fun and I just do random things that are in my head, sometimes some people will just see it and they'll be like, I want to do that with you, or I want to pay you to do that for our brand.
That's awesome. So, as you say, you were in the slashy phase, trying things out, having fun. Now, how do you actually start building that into an actual career path?
So I was like, let me think about more of the details. As a designer, that's what we do, right? Like, we don't just come up with a big idea. We figure out like the features that we want. What are the problems? What are the little problems that we want to solve? And so I kind of, decided to dig more into the details and not be so general. I was also being general about the things I didn't like in my life. So like I would say, I hate corporations. That is so general. Like that's not helping me figure out what I want to do next. Okay, what is it about corporations? It ended up being just that one person. We didn't really jive well. That person is not a corporation. It's just that person. I'm now thinking about, how do I want to have a business? How do I want to live my life?
I don't know how you begin to answer such big questions. Where did you start?
I try to do iteration as much as possible, at least once a day. Because before I would only give myself once a year, New Year's Eve or your annual review with your boss. Whereas if you give yourself 365 chances to look at your life and see what things are wrong and what can you do today, I was just more likely to do things to change it. I would check in once a day versus once a year.
Right.
Literally would ask myself 3 questions every day. Am I happy? Is there anything frustrating me? And if there is, what can I do about it today? Those 3 questions were just enough for me to act on certain things and be aware of certain things versus just waiting until it blows up in my face.
Yeah, I love that advice. I'm going to try that today.
So now I feel like I'm very, very aware of things, and I feel very confident that I can get a solution or at least try several solutions because I know I have so many opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
You know, whereas before it was so like, you got to have your North Star and you need to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life and it's going to fulfill you completely. And this is crazy.
It's not attainable. It's
no.
And I think that's why we're seeing more and more people choosing slashy career paths like yours, rather than trying to find that one job you're going to do for the rest of your life. For my audience who doesn't know, could you explain briefly what a slashy is and what they do?
Yeah. So it was because on I Love Creatives, we would do these creative profiles and the creatives would write their title and their title would be like graphic designer / violinist / pottery or whatever. And I would get kind of annoyed because I'd have to make the div on that section larger and larger. And I was like, these dang slashies. So I feel like slashies to me is like a multi-hyphenate, a jack of all trades. But I say it more and more because I think that I was in this mindset that you have to be one thing or you need to choose one path. But like with Benjamin Franklin, like he's a total slashy, you know, it was never really about what does Benjamin Franklin do. It's more like what does Benjamin Franklin make? What is his output? And I think that we're in this world now where we can gather any skill that we want in order to execute the projects that we're interested in. So for me, I love that people are embracing slashies because now they get to see their art or their projects come to life because they have to just pick up all these skills to do that.
Yeah, people are not just one thing. They're capable of doing so much more.
Yeah. And so many people have a hang up on being a master of none, you know? But I don't know. I feel like that's the kind of world we live in a way. So
there's a lot more slashies up and coming, like new ones every day.
Yeah.
Discovering that they are slashies.
Right.
What was the biggest lesson you learned from going out on your own?
That I could help other people. I was doing online education because I honestly just saw that there was a need for, like, I actually put an ad out on I Love Creatives. I needed a Squarespace junior designer. When 100 people applied, most of them wouldn't get this job because they don't have the portfolio to get it. And I was like, but they want the job. So how do I teach people how to get this job? And so that's why we created an online course. I think with how much we have to learn right now, how fast we have to learn, our colleges are not able to always fill those gaps. I really believe in online education, democratizing education. So that was the most surprising thing for me, was how fulfilling it is to really actually help people. One of my first students was like, I don't know if I want to be a Squarespace designer, but you taught me in this what I do like and how to figure out what I do like. And I have confidence now that I can figure out anything. And I was like, what? It was so cool. It was the most fulfilling work I've ever done.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of workshops and teaching, when you teach the workshops for creatives breaking out of their own, what's the most common misconception they have about life on the other side of quitting a job?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I think the biggest misconception is what they've got right now, they cannot work with it at all. I feel like you've got to challenge that. I wish that I had challenged it when I was at Activision. So I always tell people, like, let's dig into the details of why you want to jump ship, why you want to leave your job, so that you really understand what those deal breakers are, what those deal makers are. So when you get your next job or you freelance or you start your own business, you're very intentional about creating a work environment that is going to start building into something you really love. Whereas people are just like, what I have right now, all of it sucks. So what I want next is completely opposite. And I don't know, I've never done it before, but I know that it has to make,
be better. Yeah. What does success look like for you? I know success, to me, I look at your website, your profiles, your followers. I think you're uber successful. What does success look like for you?
I think it's control. And not just control of my time, but also this control of my emotional self. Because I've done so much work. Think about it. Like checking in with yourself 365 times a year sounds like a lot of work. And not everybody wants to do that, but I did. And now it's like riding a bike. It's very natural. And I just feel like I have so much autonomy, whether it's through the amount of time that I can spend on work or play, or family, or who I get to work with. I know that I have control over how I respond to things, how I react to bad things that could happen or good things that could happen. I don't know if that's just age, because I'm 30, I'm going to be 39 this year. But once I felt that autonomy and felt that control, I'm just so confident that I can figure whatever I got to figure out. And everything is fine,
For the rest of the year, I want to ask my guests going forward, I want you to think of one word that's going to describe 2023 for you. I know it's probably hard, but one word.
Okay, it's one word, but said 3 times.
Okay.
Clap, clap, clap. Because my daughter just learned, she's 9 months. She just learned how to clap. And girl, will be crawling and then she'll sit up and then she'll just clap, clap, clap for herself. And then she'll crawl. And I'm like, yes, I think that you should congratulate yourself as much as you want and as much as you can. And I forget to do that sometimes because I'm just so go, go, go and on to the next thing. But yeah, clap, clap, clap.
I love it. I think now every time I get through a hurdle or I solve a problem or take one step forward, I'm going to be clapping. Mm-hmm. Puno, I can't thank you enough for being my guest today. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Puno today and that she's given you some tools and inspiration in building your own slashy life, especially if you're gearing up to make that leap into the creator economy yourself. The lessons today that struck me were 1, don't save your resolutions just for New Year's. Check in with yourself every single day to make sure you're building a work life or just the life that you actually like or love. Be honest about how you feel and what is or isn't working for you. 2, identify your deal breakers and be very specific so you know what doesn't work for you. Focus on small changes you can make today. 3, and most importantly, chase the fun. Allow yourself the space and time to experiment with new things. You'll gain new skills and you might even end up with an unexpected income stream, just like Puno's cat calendar. This is In the Making, and I'm your host, Teresa Au. I'll be back with a new guest and new inspiration from the creator economy every 2 weeks. So take a few seconds to follow this podcast. And if you like this episode, be sure to give us a rating and a review in your podcast app. And since we're brand new, we'd really appreciate it if you share this show with your friends, family, and colleagues. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you in a fortnight.